Look over in Romans chapter 8. I have to bring this verse out because people that don't know any other verse in the Bible know this verse. You will hear this quoted by unbelievers. People out on the street that don't know anything else know this verse. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to His purpose. So everything that happens, even if it's death, even if it's tragedy, even if it's heartbreak, whatever it is, God causes this for some good purpose. He's trying to make you better. That all of your hardships are actually God working something redemptive purpose on the inside of you. That's not what this verse is saying. First of all, look at this verse. It starts with a conjunction, and. And means that this links the 28th verse to the previous verses. And if you went back to verse 26, it says, likewise, the Spirit helps our infirmities, for we know not what to pray for as we ought. But the Spirit helps our infirmities. And the Holy Spirit intercedes through us. And it's talking about the intercession of the Holy Spirit. And if you looked at that verse, it says that the Holy Spirit maketh intercession for us with groanings which cannot be uttered. He that searcheth all hearts knoweth what is the mind of the Spirit, because He maketh intercession for the saints according to the will of God. The word that is used in the Greek there for makes intercession is, I'm probably mess it up, it is something like parakletos. It's a compound word, and what it means is He takes hold together with us, is what that word literally means. And the significance of this is that the Holy Spirit doesn't just intercede for you automatically without you doing anything. And it's certainly not you on your own doing all of these things. But when you start interceding with groanings, then the Holy Spirit takes hold together with you and makes intercession. In other words, this shows that the Holy Spirit doesn't intercede for you until you start interceding. And as you intercede, then the Holy Spirit takes hold together with you and energizes it and quickens it and empowers it and makes it more effective than you would be on your own. And we know that all things work together. Now see, in the context, this is saying that when you are interceding and resisting the devil and doing what you know to do, then the Holy Spirit takes hold together with you, and then things begin to work together for good. Things just don't work together for good for anybody and everybody. I heard a man one time that had just come from a funeral, and then he stood up to preach, and he had just done the funeral of two young people who were drunk and doing drugs, and they were speeding in a car going too fast. It was raining. They slid and couldn't make a corner, hit a telephone pole, killed both of them, and he had just come from the funeral, and he got up and preached, well, we know that all things work together for good. We know that God is using this, that in the mind of God, this was His perfect plan. Maybe God saw the tragedy that would come in their life, and so rather than prevent this tragedy and have them suffer, He killed them. Boy, that is a piece of logic, isn't it? I've heard that so many times. Maybe God knew that this child was going to grow up and have problems, and so just kill him. Makes sense. In a perverse way. That's not what God's doing. God didn't lead them to get drunk and to do drugs and to speed on a road when it was raining. God didn't do any of that stuff. Those are just laws of nature. First place, Satan is the one that enticed them. As far as we know, those two kids, I talked to them about this, they weren't born again. They went to hell, and he thinks that somehow or another this is God that sent those two young people to hell because it was somehow or another working together for good. Brothers and sisters, God didn't cause that. That's perverse. Let me just say this. You would have to be a religious person that has been brainwashed and made gullible to believe stuff like that. That is a doctrine of man that makes the fact that God's a good God just have no effect. We say God is a good God. He's so good that He's liable to kill you. He's liable to put cancer on you. He's liable to make your marriage fall apart because this is going to be good for you. And then somebody who jumps off of a rock that they had a sign there, no diving, because it was dangerous. And they went ahead and violated the sign and did this, and by their own admission, wasn't seeking God and was living a life of rebellion, and jumps into a pool and hits on shallow stuff and breaks their neck and becomes quadriplegic, starts saying God did this to them to get them flat of their back, and it's worked together for good. God didn't do that. Now, God can bring good out of it, but God did not do that. They did that because by their own admission, they were living a life of rebellion towards God and towards all authority. And their rebellion led them to become a quadriplegic, and now they blame God and say it was God's will for them to be this way. That's wrong. God did not make them a quadriplegic. You just nearly have to turn off your brain to sit there and say, oh, God's such a good God. He made me quadriplegic. That doesn't compute. That doesn't fit. And that's what a lot of religious tradition is mindless stuff, just traditions and doctrines of man. And I believe that the reason it's so popular to teach this is because it takes all responsibility away from you, regardless of what you do. Be in rebellion towards God, be in rebellion towards your parents, be in rebellion towards God, ignore the warning signs, dive into a shallow pool, break your neck, and it was God's fault, not yours. God did that to you. You don't have to admit that I was wrong. I made a mistake. You don't have to admit that you ever did anything wrong. God made all of it happen. That way you can just be as carnal as you want to be. You don't have to seek God. You don't have to accept any responsibility. You don't have to renew your mind. God's will is going to automatically come to pass. I'm telling you, God's not your problem. This doesn't say that God makes everything happen, but God can take anything. If you are interceding supernaturally, empowered by the Holy Spirit, God can take bad things and bring something good out of it. I won't argue with that, but God isn't the source of it. And if you think God is the source of it, James 4:7 says, submit yourselves therefore unto God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. If God isn't the source, if Satan is actually the source, but yet you embrace it because you've been taught that, oh, this is God putting this problem in my life to make me better, then you aren't resisting the devil. The word resist means to actively fight against. And if you don't resist, actively fight against the devil, he will not flee from you. And so Satan, through this doctrine, has lulled people into being passive and accepting, to where they accept failure, and they accept hardship, and they accept problems, and they don't resist it because, after all, they would be resisting God. Man, that's a pretty slick deception. That'd be like your enemy sending enemy troops in, and yet you embrace them because, after all, this must be God. They came to kill you. And you, instead of resisting them and fighting against them, you're welcoming them into your home. You're embracing them, and they came to kill you. They'll kill you. This is what's happening. People are dying because they don't know the truth, because they're embracing these things thinking it's God's will. It says, and we know that all things work together. And notice this, it says to them who love God. Did you know not everybody loves God? So for those who don't love God, things don't work together for good. For kids that are not born again and are drunk and mixing drugs and speeding on a road and they die in a car wreck, that didn't work together for good. They went to hell. And that's not good. That didn't work together for good. You have to love God. And even if you're born again, not all people who are born again truly love God. Many get born again out of fear, out of all kinds of things, and there's a lot of Christians that don't truly love God. So this really narrows the people that this applies to. You have to be people who are letting the Holy Spirit intercede through you supernaturally. You have to love God, and the next part it says, to them who are the called according to His purpose. What is the purpose of the Lord? 1 John chapter 3 and verse 8 says, for this purpose was the Son of God manifest, that He might destroy the works of the devil. The purpose of Jesus was to destroy the works of the devil. So if you are functioning according to the purpose of Jesus, that means that you are out to destroy the works of the devil. So put all of these things together. This is applying to a person who is interceding and letting the Holy Spirit supernaturally energize and take that intercession to a level where it's not just human, but the Holy Spirit is interceding through you. That eliminates the majority of people right there. And then you have to love God. And then you have to be a person who is resisting the devil, out to destroy the works of the devil. A person who is embracing the devil as, oh, this must be God. God is the one that put this in my life. It's not going to work together for good. You got to be resisting the devil. You got to love God. You got to be operating in intercession. And if those things are operating, then yes, whatever happens to you, even if it's death, even if it's whatever, something good can come out of it.